It begins with a murder already known to all. Beat. Yet the deeper we look, the more the line between fate and complicity blurs. The morning of the murder. At dawn on a drizzly Monday, Santiago Nasar wakes with dreams of trees and birds still clinging to his mind. Beat. He steps onto his veranda, white linen suit sharp against the uncertain sky, unaware that nearly everyone else in the Caribbean coastal town already knows he will die within the hour. The narrator, returned years later to reconstruct that day, offers us fragments: the bishop's ship blowing steam on the river, the stray dogs chasing after breakfast scraps, Santiago checking the loading of his revolver. Beat. From the very first line, Garcia Marquez dissolves suspense, not by hiding the outcome, but by spotlighting the emphasis, premonition that haunts every gesture. Beat. Neighbor after neighbor glimpses signs that something is wrong. Clotilde Armenta hears the Vicario twins bragging they will kill Santiago. The milk seller recounts a drunk's warning. Victoria Guzman, the family cook, feels a chill run through her as she guts rabbits for soup. Yet each witness, the butcher, the priest, the mayor polishing his boots, assumes someone else will intervene. The morning unfurls like a ritual rehearsal, scripted yet unstoppable. Beat. We accompany Santiago on his final routine, greeting his mother, awkwardly accepting Divina Flore's shy affection, crossing the square to see the bishop who never disembarks. People wave, whisper, shrug. The twins wait outside the butcher shop, knives wrapped in newspaper so as not to alarm the authorities, announcing their intention to anyone who will listen because they actually hope to be stopped. Beat. What makes this opening section so magnetic is the interplay between inevitability and randomness. A simple note slips under the front door warning Santiago, but his mother never sees it. The alarm clock in the mayor's office is slow. A telegram clerk decides not to deliver a message. A drunk blocks a narrow path, forcing Santiago to loop back toward his killers. By narrating what everyone saw yet failed to act upon, Garcia Marquez transforms a single act of violence into a communal mirror. The murder becomes less an isolated crime than a test of moral reflexes, a test the town fails before breakfast. Beat. End of section. Honor, shame, and the Vicario twins. Angela Vicario, newlywed the night before, is returned to her mother's house like damaged merchandise when her husband, Bayardo San Roman, discovers she is not a virgin. Beat. The Vicario family's response is swift and brutal. Under the glare of rigid social codes, Angela's brothers, Pedro and Pablo, demand the name of the man who dishonored their sister. After hours of tears and beatings, Angela whispers, Santiago Nasar. Whether she speaks truth or desperation remains unknown. What matters is that the machinery of emphasis.honor has found a target. Beat. The twins' decision to kill Santiago is less about personal rage and more about restoring a public ledger. In this patriarchal culture, women are repositories of family prestige, and violence is the sanctioned eraser of shame. Garcia Marquez exposes how abstract concepts, purity, masculinity, reputation, gain lethal force once embedded in communal expectations. The brothers visit the butcher to sharpen their pig-slaughtering knives, request drinks on credit because we're killing a man, and even stop to have them re-sharpened when the first attempt is foiled. Their lethargic preparation, saturated with alcohol and doubt, underscores their hope that official authority will relieve them of the duty. Beat. Angela's own journey complicates the picture. After being disowned, she begins writing weekly letters to Bayardo, letters that return unopened for 17 years, until he finally carries a suitcase of them back to her doorstep. Her love, born only after rejection, challenges the church-endorsed prototype of female compliance. In the novel's non-linear weave, Angela emerges not as a passive victim, but as a quiet insurgent whose dogged affection rewrites her fate. Garcia Marquez leaves us pondering whether love can germinate in the soil of violence or whether both are merely different blossoms on the same vine. Beat. Through Angela and the twins, the author excavates the anatomy of honor killings, the way they enlist family, religion, and gossip to transform individual desire into collective law. Readers sense how thin the boundary is between devotion and destruction, how phrases like, "What else could we do?" disguise the relinquishing of conscience. By the time Pedro and Pablo wash blood from their hands in prison sinks, the social order they sought to restore lies even more tarnished. Beat. End of section. Collective responsibility. A town in fog. In this third movement, Garcia Marquez widens the lens to portray an entire community drifting in moral fog. Beat. We meet a kaleidoscope of townsfolk, shopkeepers, magistrates, schoolteachers, each with a fragment of the impending crime, each convinced it is someone else's duty to connect the fragments. The captain prefers to confiscate the twins' knives rather than arrest them. The priest, distracted by preparations for the bishop's visit, murmurs that murderous talk is merely drunken boasting. Cristina Iguaran, the narrator's aunt, tells him to sleep because no one kills anyone at that hour. Beat. The narrator, piecing together interviews decades later, discovers the disarming ordinariness of their reasons: worry about missing the bishop's blessing, fatigue after a fiesta, fear of meddling in family affairs. Most chilling is their collective reliance on the illusion of inevitability. They interpret the twins' public declarations not as warnings, but as fate announcing itself. By believing the event already ordained, the townspeople absolve themselves before the fact. Beat. Here, Garcia Marquez stages a critique of social psychology. Gossip spreads faster than telegrams, yet the content mutates. Some hear that a fight has been settled, others that Santiago has fled. The more information circulates, the less urgent it seems. Silence coagulates in the gaps of casual conversation. The narrative structure, repetitions, backtracking timelines, conflicting testimonies, mirrors the haze of distorted recollection, showing how emphasis.complicity can be built from half-remembered truths. Beat. Even nature seems complicit. The persistent drizzle muffles footsteps and keeps doors closed. The clanging of bells diverts attention. The distant ship whistle drowns a scream. Garcia Marquez imbues objects: the balcony, the broken jar of coffee, the wedding leftovers, with charged symbolism, suggesting that when a community relinquishes responsibility, the very environment collaborates with violence. Beat. By the time Santiago staggers through his front door, clutching his own intestines, the townspeople have assembled in doorways to watch. Some claim horror, others curiosity, a few morbid satisfaction. Their collective gaze completes the crime, turning a private vendetta into public spectacle. The narrator's late investigation underscores the irony. He too failed to foresee his friend's death, and decades later, his journalism cannot resurrect the possibility of intervention. This section reminds us that moral disasters seldom erupt from single villains. They ripen in the soil of communal inaction, watered by everyday excuses. Beat. End of section. Memory, narrative, and the elusive truth. Having charted the external events, the novel's final chords interrogate how stories are told, retold, and eventually believed. Beat. The narrator's investigation resembles a collage: court records, love letters, autopsy reports, elderly testimonies clouded by rum and nostalgia. Each source adds detail while unsettling the whole. We learn that Santiago may never have entered Angela's bedroom, that Bayardo, the gleaming suitor, descended into years of alcoholism, that the autopsy, conducted by an amateur, was so clumsy it obscured critical evidence. Beat. Garcia Marquez invites us to question the authority of narrative itself. By presenting multiple chronologies, he forces readers to assemble their own mosaic of events, only to realize that no single arrangement yields certainty. The alleged motive, Angela's lost virginity, floats like a rumor inside a rumor. Some townspeople insist she named Santiago to protect the man she really loved. Others suspect a consensual affair. A few propose Santiago was innocent altogether. In the cracks of conflicting statements blooms a radical insight. Truth in human affairs is provisional, shaped by emphasis, memory, as much as by fact. Beat. The narrator's presence is no neutral conduit. He was Santiago's school friend. He danced at the wedding. He shares the town's cultural DNA. His voyage back through testimony is also a voyage inward, confronting his own complicity. We sense that the act of writing this chronicle is an attempt at redemption, a belated gesture to halt a murder that has already occurred. Yet the very language he employs can only circle the void. Beat. This metafictional layer resonates with the broader Latin American tradition of blending journalism and magical realism. Omens, a sudden flight of birds, a dream of trees, a storm of flowers, coexist with bureaucratic documents, questioning which register more faithfully captures lived experience. The intrusion of the supernatural illustrates how communities process trauma. When rational explanations falter, myth rushes in to fill the breach. Beat. Ultimately, Garcia Marquez suggests that stories, whether told in courtrooms or whispered at dawn, are tools that shape reality. By retelling the death of Santiago Nasar, the narrator tries to repair the torn fabric of communal conscience. We, as listeners, assume the mantle of witness, inheriting both the knowledge of what happened and the burden of asking why. The chronicle ends not with closure, but with an echo, compelling us to examine the narratives we craft in our own lives and the invisible costs they may conceal. Beat. End of section.